So, days of Legion of Doom, welcome to Podcast Their Storm, we're socially awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all of our nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello and good evening, everyone. We're finally going to get to the collective shout nonsense that we've been putting off for like 3 weeks.
And I'm your host last time, I want to be the Brainstorm Pop Culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing better now that me and Brainstormer, before the stream went live, we did it again, folks. Anyway, moving along.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the article to load. If I sound weird or if I'm not as talkative as I usually am, which isn't lying to you, but I have unfortunately found myself a little sick the last couple of days. I don't know. I have a good idea of how it happened. Basically, the best I can give is don't sleep with a fan in the window when it turns to be 56 degrees at night after having weeks of very hot nights.
Oof.
Yeah. I think it was just a sudden temperature change. And again, the fan's like right next to my head, my window, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good news though, I haven't puked yet. So that's when I know it's bad.
Ooh, dear.
Mainly just stuffy nose and sore throat. That's about it. And some coughing. That's about it. Okay. So, sorry. I'm a little tired, so. So this is from Kotaku.com. Anti-porn group declares win over pedo gamer fetishists after Steam's mass sex game Purge. It was written by Ethan Gack. Published July 21st, 2025. Dalton obviously sent this to me because I don't really pay that much attention to the game.
Like I said, we're finally going to address the collective shout nonsense. Finally. We should have done it like a month ago, but there was more relevant stuff happening at the time.
Hello, Giant. Good to see you. Alright, subheader alleged pressure from payment companies has sparked the censorship debate. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me get a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Steam recently purged hundreds of sex games featuring explicit content, including many with themes around sexual abuse after rolling out stricter moderation rules. PC Gaming's biggest storefront appeared to blame pressure from online payments processors for the changes, which some developers worry will lead to a censorship crackdown on anything Steam regards as too controversial, regardless of whether it contains harmful content or not.
I would argue that any censorship based on any reasoning would be an issue, considering that as long as we're not talking about like revenge games or something, stuff that would have actually involved, real people and so on. Unless we're talking about that or something that actually has, images of noncery in it, any censorship or any definition of harmful content that doesn't take into consideration material harm would be fucked. In general, it doesn't matter if it's sexual content or not. It doesn't matter if it's problematic or not. Any censorship that doesn't revolve around something resembling the John Stuart Mill harm principle can get fucked. But I'm a hard line around this issue.
No, we didn't make a universe, Dragon Turtle. Well, not technically, but we created an interesting concept that made us want to discuss it more.
Yeah, we did, however, create a whole new portion of a universe that we already were working on. So
yeah,
yep, we did it again. It happens every fucking time. We do it almost compulsively at this point. Sorry, my phone cord keeps wanting to fall out of the port, and I keep having to plug it back in. I need to get a new phone at some point.
Yes, do.
But I'm too lazy, and we can't spare $1,000 for one at the moment. So,
Fuck, where are you getting your phones?
That's generally what a smartphone costs, dude.
Oh, you have a smartphone. Okay.
Well, considering that I use my phone to do this, that sort of goes without saying, or I would have thought it went without saying, but I forget that you sometimes miss things.
Okay, what brand is it? iPhone, Android, or
Google Pixel is mine.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
Google Pixel 3.
I wonder it's $1,000. Jesus. I got my Android for like maybe 500.
Mm.
I think you got ripped off, man.
It's possible. To be fair, when I got it, it was brand new, so that might be part of the problem.
Alright, moving on.
Yep.
Unless anything else.
Nope.
Okay. An anti-porn group, which previously tried to get games as mainstream as Grand Theft Auto 5 banned, is now taking credit for Valve's new policies and accusing critics of being sick, brain-rotted pedo gamer fetishists.
Don't act like you've never done that, Kotaku. You do the same shit. You're just mad that these particular feminist fuckwits are TERFs rather than intersectionalists. And by the way, I don't care what your justification is for anti-porn censorship. Again, barring actual violations of the J.S. Mill harm principle, obviously, anything that actually does revolve around actual kitty fiddling can go fuck itself entirely, and not in the fun way. But being that as it may, yeah, Kotaku sought off with this acting like you're against quote unquote banning this sick filth when you guys do the same shit, and you call people coomers, and you call people gooners, and you call people every inconceivable thing, and you even go so far is to frequently label characters that look too youthful as pedo shit, even if it's entirely fictional characters. So don't act like y'all don't do this. You're just mad that it's a TERF organization doing it instead of an intersectional one. But I guarantee you that if Collective Shout were intersectional feminists instead of trans exclusionary feminists, you would be on their fucking side because you've been on this side consistently for a decade and some change. So saw it off. Moving on.
Okay. The Australia-based anti-porn group Collective Shout took credit for Steam's prize moderation shift in a statement over the weekend. Hundreds of sexually violent online games that let players roleplay hard R, incest, and the torture of women and children have been suddenly removed from the global gaming platform Steam. I do feel like the context of why those games have that should also be taken into account.
Yeah, but again, I'm going to be slightly hard line on this. As long as they're fictional characters and weren't actually based on any actual, like, degenerate shit in real life, I don't see why they should be censored. Like, as long as the harm principle isn't violated, I do not consider it a valid reason to censor shit. It's like the old school Jack Thompson. We have to ban all violent video games because it causes people to be violent. First of all, no, that is false. And even if it were true to some degree, as long as those bouts of violence were contained in non-harm principle violating ways, I don't fucking care. Moving on.
Co-founder Melinda Tankard Rice wrote on X on July 19th, in a victory for child safety campaigners, Steam banned the games after Australian-based Collective Shout accused the payment platforms Visa, PayPal, and MasterCard of profiting from violent pornography.
Again, if they were fictional characters and not based on any real life models or anything, I don't see a violation of the harm principle, and therefore fuck your censorship. And let's not forget that, the TradCon family values, think of the children, derp,
Okay,
is as old as the hills as well, and no, I don't consider that to be a good reason to censor shit either.
All right, give me a second. Hello, Jenna Hearts. Good to see you. I am aware of the game Ready or Not. It actually looks rather good. I have not been able to play it yet. I know it came out on Xbox not too long ago. I do think it's a good show. From what I understand, obviously, I had heard about the thing about like when it was put on consoles, certain levels were given a how to say it change to not be as explicit as it was when it on just on PC. But from what I understand, it's a good game of addressing certain topics that do happen and the kind of things that go on with like police SWAT, like how challenging and disturbing some of the things they go and deal with. I've heard nothing but really good things about it, to be fair. And those missions are based on some of the IRL events for yes, that I was also aware of. I think Giant Turtle, it's the SWAT game. Some people have said it's like I know there were like SWAT games in the past that were really good, and they say it's like kind of a spiritual successor to that.
Mm.
If the missions are based on some IRL events, I think the thing so long as it's not copy and paste it, because I understand that it's kind of working within its own kind of world and universe. But they changed some things and stuff. But if from what I understand, it's more putting light on this stuff rather than using it for shock value.
And even if it was using it for shock value, that shit's as old as like Hammer horror and shit. Shock value is not an argument for banning things.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like it's not sure
More
if it's
tasteful.
yeah. It's bringing light to this stuff that happens.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not accusing you of saying that. I'm just saying that there are some people who will use the "oh, it's just for shock value" as a reason to ban shit, and those people can go fuck themselves.
Okay. All right. See you whenever you come back, Giant Turtle.
Yep. We will be waiting.
Yeah. Okay, I might need to take some more fucking Dayquil. Jesus Christ, my nose is fucking congested.
Oh boy.
You know what? I'm just gonna get some tissues. I'll be back.
Mhm.
Okay, hold on. Let me read some more.
Yep.
Just so you
And
have
then I
some.
can and then I can fill the space.
Okay, Collective Shout's connection to the Steam sex game purge was first reported by Anna Malin's advice, who noted that the grassroots campaign against the objectification of women and sexualization of girls in media has previously published a letter to the CEOs behind PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and other payment platforms, accusing them of profiting from hard R, incest, and child abuse on Steam. Valens also hold on. I just one more sentence.
Finish the thing. Yep.
Valens also pointed to Collective Shout's long history for calling for bans of mainstream games like Detroit Become Human and Grand Theft Auto 5 over certain scenarios and materials in the games deemed harmful toward women. And I will have something to say about Detroit Become Human when I come back.
Yeah. And again, the issue here, unfortunately, my darlings, is y'all do that shit too. You just don't like that it's a trans exclusionary group instead of a trans inclusive form of feminism that's doing it. You guys got all fucking up your own asses about Black Myth Wukong, about Stellar Blade, about Nikkei, about so many other games on the grounds that they were porn adjacent, or that they were Kumari, or that the characters looked too young and beautiful, etc., and so on. And y'all are still wrong for doing that. I don't care if it's a whiny tradcon going, "Won't somebody please think of the children?" or a whiny feminist of either stripe, be it trans inclusive or trans exclusive, going, "Won't somebody please think of the women?" My issue as a person who is a social democrat policy wise and classically liberal in terms of principle is, does it violate something resembling John Stuart Mill's harm principle? If not, then you can go fuck yourself. The only things that are justifiable to ban in media are things that actively perpetuate and or are reliant upon actual real world harms. Like if a character is young or underaged, but they are entirely fictional, I don't care, because no actual child or woman was harmed in the making of these things. If that ever does become a thing, if someone used like real world, kitty fiddling models to portray underage kids, then those games or those movies or those whatever can go fuck themselves. But the issue is, does it actually perpetuate something resembling harm by John Stuart Mill's definition? If it doesn't, then you don't have any basis to censor. And you certainly don't have any basis to come after people's fucking payment processors and shit.
I'm back.
Yep. Just in time, too.
Yeah. So Detroit Become Human. Never played it because it didn't really interest me. And then I started looking up stuff, and I was interested because I remember like watching cutscenes and stuff of it. It was basically like a living movie, playable movie.
Mhm.
And from what I understand of Quantic Dream, the developers of the game, and mainly the creative head of that is David Cage, who makes these games, right?
Mhm.
He has good ideas, but they're never implemented into the story well.
Ah.
Uh, and like the game mechanics and stuff is just it's like super odd or off or whatever.
Mhm.
um, but there was a in Detroit Become Human, which I believe is where they were going with this. There is kind of background is there is a company like this kind of near future, right?
Mhm.
Sort of cyberpunk dystopia.
Right.
Uh, Company makes these like lifelike androids. Uh,
So replicants from Blade Runner, more or less.
yes, that basically do everything.
Mhm.
Uh, Big job. Anyway, and they have these ones that go off, like break their programming, called deviants,
Mhm.
and it has multiple stories that kind of intertwine at times in the game.
Mhm.
And one story is about a android that becomes a deviant called Kara, sorry,
Mhm.
who's kind of supposed to be like a nanny maid for this one guy uh, who
Cool.
has a daughter.
Mhm.
Guy's a addict, abuser, all that, right?
Uh-huh.
And the story goes that she breaks out, saves the kid, and they're on the run, just trying to make it somewhere so the kid can have a normal life, right?
Neat.
Uh, I believe people have said that is like the weakest of the stories
Mm.
because it's not handled the best, which I think is also again it does touch upon like the violence, domestic house abuse, all that, right?
Mm. But it's not handled particularly well.
See, that's the weird thing because I've watched that story play out.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think it's handled well. To be fair, a lot of the story is not handled. It's pretty
Mm.
simplistic. I will be completely honest.
Okay, so yeah, it's a question of execution,
Yeah.
as with so many things.
Um. It's. I would say it's kind of surface level.
Mm.
Uh. And I could kind of see what shout or collective shout means. Again, I don't agree, obviously, with like
Mhm.
trying to ban it because that's incredibly stupid.
Yeah, just because you don't like something does not mean it should be banned. And by the way, I'm not advocating that you must play these sorts of games either. If you don't want to play them, by all means, don't play them. But it's not a moral issue in this particular case because unless they use like, real world models and stuff, it doesn't really translate to being in any way harmful in a substantive sense, in the like John Stuart Mill harm principle sense, and therefore there is no good basis for banning it. You don't have to like or engage with a certain form of material, um, but nor should you ban it unless there's an actual moral issue with it, and unless it violates the harm principle, I would argue it doesn't. There is no moral dimension to it. It's at that point, as long as there's not a moral dimension to it, it's a question of taste, and questions of taste usually are best served in the um, purview of argument if they need to be addressed in that way at all. And even then, in most cases, most people aren't going to even then most differences in taste are not going to lend themselves easily to being convinced one way or the other. So, meh. Moving on.
Yeah. Uh, while those attempts to censor through manufactured controversy failed, Collective Shout may be having more success directly targeting payment processing companies, which have been cracking down on pornography across the broader web on creator platforms like OnlyFans. Earlier this year, Fansly banned any sexualized anthropomorphic content in an apparent bid to censor bestiality on the platform.
Okay, that's where you're going wrong. If it's anthropomorphic, then that by definition means it's not humans, it's not people, and thus there shouldn't be a moral dimension to it. But even then, on a website like OnlyFans, people are consenting themselves usually. And by the way, just to be perfectly clear here, if anyone is like putting someone on OnlyFans against their will, then that person deserves to wind up in the unmarked grave underneath the jail. But for the most part, people are actively choosing of their own free fucking will to make a career for themselves on OnlyFans, and that should not be forbidden. You obviously should maybe try to ensure that ensure that there aren't underage kids watching, but then again, if teenagers want to go and look at porn, they're going to find ways to look at porn. This is as old as the hills. This was true even back when porn was just magazines.
I can confirm that actually, yeah.
Yep. And in the internet where all you have to do is type something into Google or something into YouTube or something into other like video service provider and so on, that's even more so a like necessarily the genie is out of the bottle and you're never going to put it back in thing.
Sorry. John Arts, Detroit Become Human has an issue of it being a multiple choice mini route story that needs to try and link to one another. You have to stick to one path to get a decent story or try your luck in stitching it together. See, I think the multiple choice mini routes thing could have worked if they really put a lot more thought into it instead of just having.
Yeah, when you make that a basis for a game, you really have to work harder at it to make that work. That's one of the biggest mistakes that modern games make. They try to sell on the multiple endings thing, but they don't actually follow through on the nuances thereof. And that usually results in an unsatisfying game. Usually.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay, hold on. Earlier this year, Fansly banned sexualized anthropomorphic content in an apparent bid to censor bestiality on the platform, despite that being condemned within the furry community as well. Instead of nuanced moderation, some platforms appear to be making more drastic shifts to appease payment companies.
Okay, here's the thing about bestiality, and this is going to get really into the philosophical weeds for a second. Please,
God damn it!
please listen to the full explanation before you tie me to the metaphorical stake, please.
Well, no, you've already given me this point before, so.
Well, no, I'm saying that for the sake of the audience because a lot of people's brains switch off when controversial stuff comes up. The long and short of it is the actual practical reason why bestiality is immoral is because animals have neither the physical nor mental capacity to consent. They will be harmed either physically or mentally, and usually both, much like children are, if they are engaged um with sexually. But in a world where said animals are humanoid, a la furries, they have something approaching human levels of intelligence and human levels of capability, and therefore they can consent. The same is true of something like the magicians in Fillory, where they have sapient talking animals. In those contexts, in the context of a animal with human or even sometimes greater than human intelligence or physical capability, then it is not immoral. In the same way, for example, it probably wouldn't be immoral, of course, depending on how the mechanics of Shazam work, but in most versions of Billy Bats and Shazam, it wouldn't be immoral to have relationships with him while he was in Captain Marvel form or Shazam form. It would, however, be when he transforms back, because in the Shazam form, he has the physical capabilities to defend himself and the mental capacities to understand what he's getting involved with, because of the whole Wisdom of Solomon thing that people always forget where Shazam comes up. My point is that the reasons why things like kitty fiddling and bestiality are wrong is because both physically and mentally there are next to no abilities in most terms for either of those two sets of people to A, consent, or B, avoid being harmed by the activity. But in fictional contexts like anthropomorphic animals or sapient talking animals, that issue is no longer an issue. Same thing with kids that have superhuman intelligence and or strength in fictional contexts. If the circumstances relating to harm and consent change, then in those contexts it's entirely possible for something approaching bestiality or something approaching kitty nonsense to not necessarily be immoral. But barring any of those, hyper realistic settings where, sapient talking animals or kids that have strength and intelligence greater than most humans exist, barring those circumstances, kitty fiddling and bestiality are always immoral. But when you start to anthropomorphize and superhumanize, that changes because the actual harm changes. Moving on.
Sorry.
Yep.
As concerned around a recent page of. Sorry, fucking Christ. Okay. As concerned around the recent purge of sex games on Steam, in addition to bans on games that use cryptocurrencies or feature sexually explicit images of real people.
Okay, that
Valve,
I'm fine with. That I'm fine with being banned, honestly. If it actually involves sexually explicit images of real people, then yeah, no, that's fine. That can be banned because it actually violates the harm principle. Although, if the images were provided voluntarily, there may be a gray area there. But if those images were obtained under, unethical or suspect means and it involves real people, then yes, that sick bill can indeed be banned. And anyone who would try to get it not banned probably belongs in the unmarked grave underneath the jail.
okay. Valve added the much more ambiguous restriction against content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. The new guideline coincided with Valve removing games from Steam with titles like Incest Tales, Webcam Daughter, and Reincarnation into Another World going to Hard R all in CP's VR.
Again, I would point out that as long as these are fictional characters, and by fictional I mean entirely fictional, as not, as in not based on, images of real people or anything, as long as no one is actually harmed by it, then I don't think it should be banned. Moving on.
I'm gonna be honest. These games kind of seem both extremely niche and also very low, low effort.
Yeah, they are. And that's another reason why we probably shouldn't be clutching about them, because the people who are interested in playing those sorts of games are probably fairly rare, if we're being entirely honest with ourselves. Because most people make decisions like that based on taste rather than morality. And the more honest we can be about that, the more honest we can be about where morality ends and taste begins, the better, I think. Disgust by itself is not a moral determiner. It is a determiner of taste. Moving on.
Uh, I don't know why I'm so fucking tired. But others
Well,
with
you're
genre
sick.
tags
That
that still
probably
mention
doesn't
things
help.
like I'm fine. Uh, Others with genre tags that still mention things like incest were left untouched, spreading confusion about where exactly Valve was drawing the line. Uh, it was also unclear why Valve was only taking action now, despite this type of porn slop, including some truly vile-sounding games, have routinely crept onto the storefront. Instead of Valve banning actual soul sim called No Mercy earlier this year, it was voluntarily withdrawn from Steam by its creators.
Slight pedantry there, DT. The phrase anthropomorphic, or the word anthropomorphic, explicitly means giving human qualities to non-human things. We can't be anthropomorphic because we are anthros. That the word andros or anthros literally just means human. So we can't be anthropomorphic because we already are. We are anthros. In order to be anthropomorphic, you have to take something that is not possessed of anthro or andro qualities and give those things, morph those things into into having anthro qualities. So, as pedantic as I'm being right now, I would argue that you can't be anthropomorphic as a human unless you are somehow turned into some other creature and then returned your anthro quality somehow. Anthropomorphic explicitly means you have to take something that doesn't have human qualities and morph them so that they do.
Hold on.
Yep.
Okay. I was recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and the related card networks and banks. About spokesperson told Eurogamer last week when trying to explain the sudden and incomplete shift in its moderation of sex games. As a result, we are retiring those games from being sold on the Steam store because the loss of payment methods would prevent customers from being able to process other titles and game content on Steam.
Frankly, I don't think you should be able to go. I don't think you should be able to go after payment processors, and I think payment processors, much like utility providers, have a duty to be as neutral and objective as possible. Like, you shouldn't be able to deny someone heat or water because you don't like their political or ideological or even moral aspects. I would argue that in today's day and age, banking and payment processing is something so universal that to do without it is very equivalent to, being barred from having electricity or hot water or some shit. Like, try living for even a day without needing to make some uh financial transaction that goes through a payment processor. I don't think most people in the modern world could.
Moving on, or
Yeah.
okay, sorry, see you went quiet there. I wasn't sure if that was on my end or not. So
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
okay,
I'm
it's
trying
not
to
clear right.
move through this as quick as possible so we can get to the rest of them.
Okay, it's not clear right now if the Steam will continue purging works in practice. Does it review games for infringing content first? Does it ban things based on how they look or sound, and then wait for the creators to appeal later? And is it working off of clear guidelines from payment companies? It's that type of moderation mess that risks censoring various game-based works of art simply because someone in a position of power might go ick, or even worse, they saw someone making noise about it on social media and didn't want to get caught up in the drama.
Again, Kotaku, you can go fuck yourself because you are not a neutral party in this regard. Y'all do the moral pearl clutching opinion piece thing all the fucking time. So I don't really care what your opinion on this is, considering that you unironically think that some things should be banned, not on practical or harmful grounds, but on abstract moral grounds, and you can go fuck yourself. I don't care if it's a whiny Tradcon Helen Lovejoy going, "Won't somebody please think of the children?" or if it's Anita Sarkeesian going, "Won't somebody please think of the women and minorities?" Your morality by itself is not a reason to ban shit unless it harms people categorically along the terms of the harm principle. And no, psychological harm is very nebulous in most cases, and therefore even it must be restricted to the most severe circumstances. So yeah, no. Kotaku, you don't have a leg to stand on here. You are a bunch of fuckwits because you do this same shit. You just do it from an intersectional standpoint rather than a turf standpoint. Moving on.
Okay. That's certainly an approach that the owners of Vice, which originally broke the story on Collective's relationship to the changes, appears to have taken. Savage Ventures, which invested in Vice after it went bankrupt, was used by Vice's owner Savage Ventures has requested the removal of My Collective Shout article she posted on Blue Sky over the weekend. This is due to concerns about the controversial subject matter, not journalistic complaints. In the meantime, Collective Shout co-founder Melinda Tankard Rist, I think, is calling those critical of Valve's decision porn, sick, brain-rotted pedo gamer fetishists, while the organization's initial letter accused Steam of hosting hundreds of games that would breach Australian classification laws. Collective Shout has so far declined to name any specific examples of the developers' descriptions are too distressing for us to make public. Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, by the way, fuck you, Australia. You don't get to project your morality onto every company in the world. You can do that with companies that are, based in Australia, but Steam and Valve are not based in Australia, so you can go fuck yourself. And by the way, this is once again me calling you out for hypocrisy, Kotaku. You do the same, like Gooner Coomer fetishist thing every time you make a moral argument rather than a practical argument or even a harm-based argument. So you also can go fuck yourself. The only reason you don't agree with Collective Shout is because they're more interested in the woman side of feminism than they are in the and minority side of feminism. And frankly, I don't care if you're a feminist or a traditionalist or anything in between. Your morality should not be so sacrosanct that it be universalized to all of the fucking universe. Unless and until you can demonstrate actual harm by the terms of J.S. Mill's harm principle. J.S. Mill's harm principle, I will grant you. But that is my cutoff. Unless and until it violates John Stuart Mill's harm principle in some meaningful way, there is no cause to ban shit. Moving on.
What's up? I'm awake. What's up?
You fell asleep?
No, I passed out. I'm good.
Oh dear. But next.
I'm fucking with you. I was half asleep. I was
Okay, good. Also,
like,
fuck you.
aware, but I wasn't like.
You were drifting in and out of consciousness, is what you're telling me.
Let me know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, is from 404media.com .co. Oh, damn it. Okay. Fuck. Okay. Anti-porn crusade that censored Steam and itch.io started 30 years ago. It's written by Samantha Cole, published August 4th, 2025.
I mean...
subheader, keywords and tags have... Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Subheader, keywords and tags have never been a useful metric for distilling nuance. Pushing for regulations based on them is repeating a 30-year history of porn panic online.
I'm confused, see, because...
God damn it.
What?
I gotta get an archive of this fucking shit.
It did the thing again.
I'm not shit. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm confused as to where the 30-year estimate comes from, because that would take us to the 90s, and I know because I just turned 30 last month, and that would mean that they're referring to 1995 when they say 30 years ago. And the reason I'm confused there is because during that period, the moralistic cause du jour were traditionalist family values types, and now in the modern world, it's intersectional feminist social justice types. Unless they're going to, unless 404 Media is going to try and pretend that the tradcons never went away or never got dethroned, and that the feminist types have never done anything like that, which both of those statements are false. The tradcons did fall out of favor for a significant period of time, and their moralistic authoritarian fuckwittery was taken over by the social justice / woke party. So yeah, you're gonna have to miss me if you're gonna try and convince me that Collective Shout is a traditionalist organization rather than a intersectional feminist organization. Mind you, in my particular case, no matter what the justification is, I don't care either way. I don't care if it's a Helen Lovejoy or an Anita Sarkeesian. They both can go fuck themselves because moralistic authoritarianism can go fuck itself. I don't care what moral ideology you're appealing to justify that moral and sociocultural authoritarianism. Yeah. While we're waiting for the archive to do its thing.
It's also it's an image of the same thing of like the paywall, so might have to skip that article.
Fuck. Well, at least it moves us along a little bit quicker, and we'll return to it as and when we can, or as and when a more complete version can be found.
Oh God. Well, for the best, I am like on the verge of dying. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, fuck.
Do you want to call it this early, or do you want to try to soldier through?
I'm good.
Okay, just let me know when you need to tap out, dude. I don't want to make you die.
It will be my own fault, not yours.
I'm just
So I
telling
don't quit.
you. Okay. Just so we're clear, though, you can tap out whenever you need to, dude. Do not feel the need to suffer on my account.
It's from Wire.com. Gamers are furious about the censorship of NSFW games, and they're fighting back. It's written by Megan, and I'm going to apologize in advance for mispronouncing this name. Farokh Kamesh, published July 30th, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Subheader is an industry group cry as industry groups decry censorship. Players are flooding Visa and MasterCard with complaints and sharing the titles of delisted NSFW games to support developers. Okay.
Dragon Turtle makes an excellent point, and I do reserve the right to resort to necromancy if I have to.
Yeah, but he's not going to make me a mummy. One, he'd have to come all the way from where he is to do it, and I don't think he has the dexterity enough to pull my brain out from my nose. Or
no, but there are tools for that, you know.
Do you have the dexterity to wield those tools?
It's really not quite as complicated as all that. They essentially stuck a stick up your nose and swizzled it around until the brain came running out of its own accord.
You have hand-eye coordination to do any of that.
Yes. The major issue would be getting the various like incense and unguents for the bandages and shit, and the ritual tools for proper mummification are expensive as shit, so that would take me several months.
By that time, I would already be a decomposing corpse.
Well, and unfortunately, that's why in mummy movies a lot of the mummies already look semi-decayed. Although realistically, they probably shouldn't, considering the arid nature of the Egyptian countryside was very good at preserving corpses naturally, which is also a part of the reason why there is so much of mummies left, than as compared to modern coffins and shit. Anyway, moving on.
That is incredibly fucked up, Dragon Turtle. Accurate, but fucked up. Alright. Trade organizations across the game industry and gamers are speaking out against censorship campaigns taking place across Steam and Inked.io in an effort to help developers who have been unfairly impacted. The push against adult content is being driven by Australian conservative group Collective Shout, whose pressuring of payment processors has forced platforms to mass de-index NSFW content, and developers are scrambling to understand whether their games have been impacted and why.
I don't really have anything to add at that particular part. Next.
There aren't many mummies left because we ate them.
We did.
Statement, unfortunately. Should be
Or
generous with we.
or rather the Victorians ate them. For some reason they thought that eating mummies would make them younger.
Let's just add that to the list of why I fucking hate the Brits.
Yeah. Fair enough. Victorians hate seeing so much of a woman's ankle. Also, the Victorians eat, commit necrophilic cannibalism.
Fuck it. Why does it always feel like I am the only smart person in a world full of idiots? Present company excluded, obviously.
Because, unfortunately, many people don't want to use their brains even if they could, and they do everything they can to avoid using their brains.
I don't want to know about that, John. Please don't give any information on that.
Yeah, the most exotic and rarest form of jerky possible aside, moving on.
On platforms like Blue Sky, users are compiling lists of censored artists with NSFW pieces and unsearchable ick pages. Whether it's games or comics, many of whom identify their work as LGBTQ+ or kink-friendly. Wired was able to find several of these pages via Google, all of which were tagged by their creators in that document as LGBT and NSFW, but not with ick search tools.
Wired, you moronic cunt, you. See, this is once again me being annoyed at the hypocrisy here, because they just revealed, albeit indirectly and subtly, that they only care about Collective Shout's desire to ban sexual stuff because it goes against the LGBT. They don't have any, or they probably wouldn't have nearly as much of a problem with sexual content that was, heterosexual in nature getting banned. So, again, I call out the hypocrisy here. Wired, you don't have a leg to stand on because you're among the many online media sites that frequently bitches about things like Stellar Blade or Sung Wukong for appealing to the straight male gaze or some shit. And you can go fuck yourself. And I'm saying that, by the way, as a gay guy, because I, unlike some extremely narcissistic, short-sighted fuckers, am capable of being consistent with my principles. And therefore, it's not just things that affect me I have problems with. I have this thing called a consistency of principle. Or I strive to as much as possible anyway.
Okay. According to the International Game Developers Association, a nonprofit that supports game developers, this kind of censorship disproportionately affects developers who are queer, trans, or people of color, on top of affecting a creator's income and reputation. That
And
feels like
again,
the last one should be the most important thing, to be fair.
yeah, again, the fact that it happens to be LGBT or kink-related stuff getting censored isn't the issue. The issue is that you shouldn't censor on principle, damn it, unless the harm principle is violated.
Moving on.
Oh, Jonah, you got a kitten? Sorry, my brain immediately hyperfixates whenever cute cats come up because I am a cat person. And cue Dragon Turtles dog supremacy in 3, 2, 1.
That is true. Kittens are like cats are just fucking jackasses. Giant turtle.
Not
I bet-
if
yep.
you not if you know how to cat properly. A lot of people don't know how to cat properly, but that is not the cat's fault. That is the human's fault.
I'm sorry about your makeup and perfumes, Jenna. Okay. The right to make mature games with legal adult content is a creative right, just like the right to tell stories about war, death, or love.
Yes, but again, you all don't have any leg to stand on here because you mortal fag.
That's from the hold on, Don. That's from the director of the International Game Developers Association.
Okay, well then, yeah, he is exempt from my calling out of hypocrisy. Then, yeah, but that is true regardless if it's gay, straight, or anywhere in between. For consistency. Moving on.
Fourth, wow. Cats do be like that.
The issue there was you were paying attention to something other than her, and she did not approve of this.
That's all cats.
Them's the rules with them's the rules with cats. You are paying attention to something other than. To be fair though, dogs also do the same thing. They're just a lot more hyperactive and rambunctious about it. Or at least most dogs I've ever interacted with do that saying, "You're paying attention to something other than me, I must fix" thing. Anyway, moving on.
Sorry, I just looked at my last cat, which would have been Midnight.
Mm.
Black cat. Actually, I had a bunch of black cats growing up.
Yeah, I figured with a name like that, it would have to be a black one.
It's more like a dog than a cat.
I've had a couple cats that are like that. We had one that we literally called Cooch because he acted so much like a dog.
Ah, stray. Okay. Yeah. So we'd always let our cats out so they can roam about the neighborhood. They usually came in at night.
Mm.
one Sunday, and I didn't come back. And I'm gonna be honest, I think he might have. To be fair, we have a lot of cats around here, so
we let our cats out, but we're also in the middle of nowhere countryside, so they have like a whole ass cornfield to play with in the backyard if they want to.
yeah.
And we don't, and our neighbors live like several, like almost like a mile and a half down the road, so there's plenty of space to roam in and they won't be in danger usually.
Okay, actually, this one happened like a week ago. I forgot to tell you this story. So I'm being driven home from work, right? We're kind of on a highway because it's a little bit far.
Mhm.
It's gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt your heart a little bit.
I am bracing myself internally. Go ahead.
So we were driving down the road, right? Cats on the road. I think little kittens, actually.
Oh,
I think maybe one of them, unfortunately, either died from heat stroke because it was on the side of the road not moving, or got hit. Not sure.
oh, poor
Then
baby.
there were some in the middle of the road, and fortunately, someone stopped, got out, and was picking them up.
Yay, happy ending.
Don't know what happened to them after, but obviously, yeah, no, that was.
At least there was a happy ending.
And no one hit them. Possibly. I think they were like gray and white cats, if I remember correctly.
Tuxedo cats.
To be fair, and that place is like a lot of farmland or like open fields
Right.
and stuff.
Which would explain all the strays. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we got plenty of them here downtown, so.
Well, because cats
I've had a
are a
couple of
very
them. Like,
cats are a very invasive species. They can survive almost anywhere.
yeah. To be fair, there's been like one that has been around here a few times, literally in our back. Uh, like opened the back door, right, for back porch. It's just standing there at the bottom of our steps, meowing, asking for food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw I saw DT.
It was
I
like,
actually used to have a whole ass book that was called Your Magical Cat, magical spelled with a CK. That was about how you could involve your cat into your magical practice. I used to read it to Isis when she was a little kitten, and she would just lay there and listen to me read to her. Now I am nostalgically sad again. Damn it. We're still planning on getting a new cat at some point, and of course I still have Charlie. He's a good boy too, but I think he's either getting old or getting depressed, and that's kind of part of the reason I want to get a new kitten is because I wonder if having somebody to interact with other than me might put a little pep back into his step.
anyway, shall we?
Yep. Moving on.
In a statement given to Wired Executive Director Jackin Vela says the IGDA is seriously alarmed by the delistings and payment disruptions of adult-themed games on Steam and it's I don't know. Globally, politically, we are at a crossroads for developer rights, creative freedom, and platform accountability, he says. The right to make mature games with legal adult content is a creative right, just like the right to tell stories about war, death, and love.
Yeah, no shit.
Over the past few months, over the past few months, Jesus Christ. For the past few months, Collective Shout has been campaigning to get rape and incest games removed from online platforms. The game began applying pressure to payment processors such as Visa and MasterCard. Valve removed hundreds of titles, some of which included incest.
Again, if it's fictional characters committing fictional incest, I don't care. It doesn't violate the whole principle. It shouldn't be banned. Ever.
Okay. Other developers, however, such as the creators of horror game Vile Exhumed, say their game did not violate any standards. Vile Exhumed was not banned for its use of gore and storytelling or violent themes, wrote developer Car Cadaver in an update. It was banned for sexual content with depictions of real people, which, if you played it, you know is all implied, making this all feel even worse. I refuse to censor to make changes to the game. I will not retell a story about these topics in a way to make people who don't understand feel more comfortable. Valve did not respond to a request for comment.
To be perfectly clear, Dragon Turtle, if we're using like the manga romance subgenres, cats are Tissandre. That's what cats are. They only become aloof little sociopaths if you don't show them that you care about them early on. A lot of the aloofness that people attribute to cats is just because they expect cats to behave like dogs and like bend over backwards to get affection instead of what they actually do, which is they will give you as much affection as you give them in turn. And especially if you get them while they're young and make them feel happy and safe and loved, cats are some of the most loyal, most social animals on the planet. But cats, if they don't get the affection and attention they need when they're young, will become aloof, just like a child who's not loved sufficiently will become aloof and emotionally detached. Aloofness is not the cat's natural nature, no matter what most people think. Aloofness is what happens when the cats give up on you and basically just tolerate your existence as like a roommate. But if you make an effort to make a cat a part of your family, they are some of the most loyal, most affectionate son of bitches on the planet.
I'm aware that I had a cat like when I was growing up. It was my grandmother's cat.
Yeah. People's failure to realize that cats need affection and socialization just like every other creature is what results in the cats are aloof myth. Because people, yeah.
Well, Jonah wanted me to tell you the T is silent in Tsundere.
Well, yes, but nonetheless, that you know what I'm referring to. The reason I made that mistake is because I've never heard it out loud. I've only ever seen it in text.
Fair enough. Giant Turtle also asks the question: old style Tsundere starts hating you and warms up to you, or new type likes you but doesn't want to admit it and gets aggressive / defensive about it?
Little bit of both. It usually starts in the middle, and if you don't give it enough affection, it will transform into type 1 and then eventually just become aloof and give up on you. If you do socialize it properly, it will morph slowly from type 2 into just the most obsessively affectionate creature on the planet.
I won't. John, I'm gonna be honest. I'm probably not gonna be able to join the game, just simply because I am probably going to go to bed immediately after this because I need sleep. I'm already on the verge of passing out on stream, so
Yeah.
sorry. Also, I don't have like. My computer is, as Don often puts it, a potato. So I don't know if I would be able to be on a Discord call for long enough without glitching out or anything. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, it has de-indexed all adult NSFW content according to GameFile that applies to over 20,000 games. Our ability to process payments is critical to every creator on our platform. Founder Leaf Korokan wrote at the time, to ensure that we can continue to operate and provide a marketplace for all developers, we must prioritize our relationship with our payment partners and take immediate steps towards compliance.
Yeah, payment processors. I've already made this point, but I'll make it again for clarity's sake. Payment processors should be like utility companies. They should be allowed to deny you service for moral or political reasons. And frankly, the people who try to pressure payment processors should be in fucking prison. In the same way as if a group pressured utility companies to deny people food and water or heat and water or whatever the fuck, they should also probably be in prison. It's getting to the point where I'm beginning to insist that we need to start treating people who moralistically fearmonger like the same people, like the people that they claim other people to be. In the same way that I think if you knowingly and willfully falsely accuse someone of a heinous crime, your punishment for said false accusation should be at least approximate to what the person you were accusing would have suffered. Like if you falsely accuse someone of rape, for example, you should have to have a similar prison sentence to a rapist. It would prevent people from moral fagging and cajoling people into submission like this.
Okay. In an email to Wired, Cochran said the company needed to finish conversations with payment processors to understand where they stand so that we can make the right decisions going forward. We have been making good progress this week, so hopefully we'll have some updates to publish soon. The company has suspended its Stripe payments on 18 plus content for the foreseeable future and is actively reaching out to other payment processors that are more willing to work with this kind of content.
Moving on.
Reached for comments. Stripe spokesperson Casey Becker said that the company does not comment on users. Generally speaking, we take action when we conclude that users violate our terms of service. Becker says we do not support adult content. The company has a long-standing policy of not working with adult content services. Okay.
Yep, moving on.
In a previous statement to Wired, Collective Shout campaigns manager Caitlin Roper said the organization had no communication with payment processors outside of an open letter. In a blog posted July 28th, however, Collective Shout says it approached payment processors because Steam did not respond to us.
Because you're not the center of the goddamn universe, you moralistic hags. People are not obligated to buckle to your moralistic pressure. And in cases where it's a universal thing, like a utility or a payment processor, not only don't they have to listen to you, but they should be actively disincentivized from listening to you at every possible interval. Unless and until actual harms can be demonstrated.
Yeah. Corcoran told Wired that Glitch Shout had not spoken to it. I don't know. According to experts, this is a powerful tactic known as financial censorship that weaponizes financial institutions' aversion to anything controversial. It essentially sidesteps a platform's own rules for what it will allow and puts that decision directly in the hands of payment processors, which impacts what companies are allowed to sell.
Yeah, and even that is just a sub variation on the idea of power mapping and institutional capture, which frankly I would say we should start putting laws in place against like power mapping and institutional capture and that kind of thing, especially when it's a universal thing. Like, you know, internet access and financial access should be treated approximately like utilities are. In the modern day Western world, you can't function without a digitized bank account, really, and you can't function. Well, no, I guess you, in theory, could function without internet, but it should be a choice of the person, not a choice of the provider. In the same way as you can, in theory, never get your house hooked up to electricity, but it should be the choice of the buyer, not the choice of the seller, when that happens. Unless and until they are devoid, obviously if they don't pay for their utilities, then by all means you can switch them off at that point. But that's about as far as it should go. And the same is true with banking, and the same is true to some degree at least of internet at this point, I think. Because so much of technology is moving toward the digitization of everything and smart tech. So on some level in the first world, internet may not quite be at the level of a utility just yet, but it's certainly getting there. And I think it makes more sense to preemptively figure that out now than 20 to 50 years from now when internet is pretty much as universal as a utility is now.
Alright. Giants would need to be very careful to do that without going to communism, and even then, not weaponizing legit complaints, especially if it also applies to social interaction, like everyone shunning someone for being canceled.
Obviously, I'm not against private utility companies, but we figured this out years ago that you shouldn't be able to, for example, deny someone access to their mail or their telephone because they have controversial political or moral positions, unless and until the harm principle is violated, in which case we throw them in jail, and then what they have access to in jail is dependent, of course, on the jail. But yeah, I genuinely think that within the next like 20 to 50 years, we're going to start looking at internet access like it is equivalent to utility, in the sense that you shouldn't be able to ideologically deplatform people from it, in the same way as you shouldn't be able to like the power company shouldn't be able to go, you have a moral stance that we don't approve of, so say goodbye to your use of electricity or some shit. Moving on.
Okay. Platforms have long had terms of service restricting content such as non-consensual acts, rape, incest, and material that violates payment processor guidelines, says Vela. The concern today is not the existence of these rules, but rather that their enforcement is adversely impacting games that do not actually violate these restrictions, often without warning or explanation.
Yeah, and they can go fuck themselves. Both the payment processors for buckling to this shit, but also the people who beget this kind of fucking social lynch mob shit. Moving along.
Tarantula, yeah, but that was before such public networking and power mapping. To the point, it makes freedom of association a deadly vulnerability, and it's the question of if we should give it up or can afford not to.
Like I said, I'm generally against the idea of power mapping. I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of people convincing other people, as long as it's a one-on-one or individual choice rather than an institutional choice. Institutions have more power and therefore should be held to higher standards than individuals. It's the old Stan Lee's razor power, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, and the greater the with the greater the power, the greater the responsibility as a corollary to that. And the more rigidly your responsibility should be enforced.
Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
Right. In response to one developer on Blue Sky, Corcoran said the team is considering adding an update to the dashboard to more explicitly show indexing status when the dust settles. Corcoran told Wired that he believes the confusion stems from it not providing clear information on users' dashboard about indexing eligibility of pages. A handful of devs incorrectly assumed their pages were affected by our July 24th change and posted statements on social media. He said press publications picked up these posts without any further verification, which led to an incorrect narrative being spread further. Corcoran said the pages that were incorrectly assumed delisted were due to our existing indexing eligibility rules outlined in our indexing guide related to missing requirements like files uploaded, cover images, or in a few cases, a first-time seller review process.
I don't really have much to add there. Moving along.
Okay. The German Games Industry Association, GAME, has called developers artistic freedom fundamental to games as a cultural medium. Managing director Felix Volk said in a statement that restrictions from payment service providers and gaming platforms should not override what's legally allowed, and that service providers like Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal's terms and conditions should not conflict with free expression. Creative forms of expression or certain themes as games such as diversity must not be targeted by individual interest or campaigns for particularly vocal groups, as is currently being observed on Steam and itch.io, folks said.
Here's the problem. I forget which website this is on. Is this the Wired one?
It's on Wired, but also they're talking about Game, which is a German thing.
Okay, but here's the problem. The Wired. You guys don't believe that when it applies to your shit being enforced. So once again, I must be incredibly skeptical because I actually am consistent in the sense that I don't care if it's a family values tradcon of yesteryear or an Anita Sarkeesian fanboy intersectional feminist or a J.K. Rowling style turf. I don't believe in abstract authoritarian cultural or moral censorship. I make exceptions for the harm principle and only the harm principle, because that's a practical, physical, usually formulation. If it doesn't violate that, if it doesn't violate John Stuart Mill's harm principle, then your arguments for censorship can and will get fucked, frankly, and should. And we should hold banks and payment processors to something like the same standard we hold utilities to, because it's practically impossible in any reasonable functional way to function in today's day and age without some digital access to banking. And again, I'm not necessarily opposed to the internet also being in somewhere approximating that category. Especially because many companies are owned by overarching, grander companies, and so if there's not a alternative form of payment processing, or if the payment processors all agree on the same standard, then you're basically in a digital island if the payment processor or internet provider decide to fuck with you, which is a good incentive to not letting them fuck with you in that way. Some metric of universality or impartiality should be enforced in this vein, in the same way as it was with water providers, electricity providers, gas providers, so on.
Testing. Hello?
Yep, still here.
Okay. Entertainment Software Association, which represents the game industry in the U.S., declined to comment. The UK's trade operation for games and interactive entertainment, Yuki or Uklay? Hold on. No, Yuki did not immediately respond to requests for comment. In response to the Collective Shouts campaign and subsequent fallout, the IGDA is gathering information from affected developers, which it says will guide its future actions. Games that feature consensual adult content, including queer, kink positive, and romantic narratives, are easily targeted under vague or overly cautious enforcement, often forcing developers into silence or self-censorship because platforms fear perceived risks associated with hosting little adult content, says Vela.
Yeah, and that's wrong, and it's just as wrong when the standards being enforced are social justice rather than turf standards. And it would be and was just as wrong when it was the TradCon, J. Thomas Fowler, Jack Thompson, Frederick Wortham Hays Code variety of enforcement either. Morality in the abstract should not be an enforceable authoritarian or cultural cutoff. The only things that should qualify you for that kind of deplatforming are things that categorically violate John Stuart Mill's harm principle. I don't care how disgusting something is, as long as you have the option of choosing to engage with it or not engage with it. Your rights and morality are not so sacrosanct that you should be able to enforce it on all of society. Moving on.
The IGDA looking for concerned parties to contact financial institutions like MasterCard and Visa directly, as well as support online petitions to ask these companies to stop interfering with entertainment and sex work. MasterCard and Visa have increasingly used their financial controlled pressure platforms into censoring legal fictional content, reads the campaign for a Change.org petition with over 185,000 signatures. Entire genres of books, games, films, and artwork are being demonetized or deplatformed not because they're illegal, but because they often personal values of executives or activist groups.
I entirely agree with this. This was going on from the 70s to the 90s in the TradCon variation, and it's been going on for the last 12 to like 15 years. And in either case, abstract morality that doesn't actually relate to John Stuart Mill's harm principle should not be a reason to be culturally authoritarian or trying to universalize an authoritarian framework. I don't care if it's Helen Lovejoy saying it or, the cliched HR Karen saying it or someone like Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn saying it. Your morality is not the center of the universe and you can fuck off unless and until you can explain to me how and why it violates John Stuart Mill's harm principle. And if what you're asking doesn't violate that, then I don't care. Moving on.
See, MasterCard and Visa did not respond to requests for comment. Since the daily companies like Visa, MasterCard, and Stripe to protest. One artist who makes adult content who has to remain unnamed out of fear of their financial accounts being affected tells Wired that they were hung up on twice by Visa on Tuesday. The first time I was left on hold for about 10 minutes only to have the call suddenly disconnect. Second time I was told by a clearly frustrated rep that he would not connect me to a supervisor and that Visa is no longer answering questions about policy.
See, that is some bullshit. Something as universal as credit cards and payment processors should not be able to give people this kind of moral runaround. For exactly the same reason as, like, water companies and power companies aren't allowed to. You shouldn't be able to disconnect somebody's phone or somebody's, mail service because they made a abstract moral no-no. The criminal law system exists to, fortunately and hopefully, mostly stick to, does this actually violate the harm principle? And if not, then it's none of our fucking business. And that's the only metric that I'm willing to make this exception for. If you can explain to me how actual substantive harm, as John Stuart Mill would have defined it, is violated, then I will hear your rationale for censorship. If you cannot explain to me or do not care about John Stuart Mill's harm principle, then you can get fucked. At that point, your morality is rarefied and abstract enough that I don't have to give a shit, and neither do you. Moving on.
I'm fucking tired. We are gonna skip the Gamergate one and finish it next week.
Yeah, we'll save it. We'll save it for next week. You want to tap out now? Then we can split this one too if you need to.
No, I'm good. I'm just thinking about it.
I don't want you to suffer unnecessarily here.
I'm fine for now, man. I was just thinking about it.
Okay, just let me know. Let me know when you need to call it. It's fine.
The artist says that while they're approaching these calls as a consumer because they sell comics on it, they're also directly impacted by new policies. My audience, my friends, and my colleagues are all LGBTQ+ and are being overwhelmingly affected by this kind of censorship, where merely existing as a queer person is seen as inherently pornographic and fetishistic, they say.
The fact that you're LGBT doesn't... No, go ahead. Finish it. Sorry.
I just want to stress that all of us are working and creating art well within the bounds of the law.
Yeah, the fact that you're LGBT has absolutely no relevance to fuck all here. It doesn't matter if the art is straight or Coomerish or Goonerish or in any other way distasteful to you. whether you be straight, gay, or somewhere in between, as long as the thing you are trying to produce doesn't violate the harm principle, which in this case would probably be mostly restricted to kitty fiddling shit or bestiality, then there's no cause to ban it. Don't come at me with all that safe, horny, and safe, edgy shit. Fuck off. Your stuff is not any more morally sacrosanct than anyone else's stuff. The only question should be, does this or does this not violate the harm principle? And if no, then it's up to the individual choices and individual taste of individual people, and you should either have to convince them to agree with you or just leave it up to their own discretion. And if you can't convince people to agree with you, you shouldn't be allowed to institutional capture and power map by going after people's jobs, employers, payment processors, etc. Fuck you. You don't get special treatment because you're LGBT, and I'm saying that as a gay guy. I don't want special treatment. I am capable of being consistent with my principles, and everyone else should be as well, where possible. Moving on.
Okay. Eros describes the collective shout and morality in media as puritanical groups using the very real and legitimate fears of child exploitation to push through their right-wing policies.
They're not right-wing. They're TERFs. They're trans-exclusionary radical feminists. Feminism is, generally speaking, left-wing. You're doing that thing where you're reframing things in order to make it seem like your side never does anything wrong, and you can go fuck yourself. No. Collective Shout is a feminist organization, not that it would matter to me if they were a tradcon organization. I'm just saying that factually that is inaccurate, because factually they are feminist in nature, and they have claimed themselves as being such. I don't care if they're tradcons or feminists. Abstract morality that has nothing to do with the harm principle is not a reason to censor or ban anything. But in terms of accurately describing reality, Collective Shout is a feminist organization, and they're not right-wing. It wouldn't change anything morally or ethically or philosophically for me if they were, but in this instance of, trying to describe reality accurately, they are left-wing feminists. They're just more concerned with the woman card than they are with the women and minorities card. But that doesn't make them tradcons. That just makes them a different kind of feminist. This is feminist on feminist warfare, as far as I can tell. Stop trying to frame them as tradcons. I would still be on your side if they were tradcons, mind you, because you should not censor or ban anything based on abstract morality. You should only even entertain such a thing based on the harm principle. But as it happens, this is feminist on feminist ideological schism right now. Tradcons are having nothing to do with it. Not that there aren't tradcons who probably would agree with Collective Shout more than they would with you, but no abstract morality is a good reason to censor or ban or deplatform shit. Ever. Moving on.
And the entertainment industry platforms have faced similar pressures involving anti-porn groups claiming to fight sexual exploitation by using payment processors to get content banned. Visa and MasterCard previously cut off payments to Pornhub, OnlyFans briefly banned, and then reversed the stance on sexually explicit content due to bank influence. Just this week, new child online safety laws in the UK kicked in that now require millions of adults to submit to ID document uploads, face scans, credit card checks, and more to access pornography. Similar age verification laws have been implemented in over 20 states. Critics say although these measures are aimed at protecting kids, they open the door for a mountain of privacy and surveillance problems. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, won't somebody please think of the children isn't a good reason for doing shit anyway. Unless and until the harm principle is violated. At which point, then you wind up in the unmarked mass grave under the jail, as I've alluded to several times. If actual children are actually harmed by the John Stuart Mill definition of the term, then by all means, wind up in the mass grave underneath the jail. But won't somebody please think of the children is not a compelling argument, and should not be. We've already addressed this. This is the original, TradCon family values flavor of Helen Lovejoy-ism. And no, won't somebody please think of the children is not a good argument unless and until harm principle violation occurs. In which case, welcome to the unmarked grave underneath the jail. Moving on.
On its website, it I don't know, added an additional FAQ to address complaints, including discussing the difference between it and responses, because it is not a closed platform like Steam. The post reads, it has minimal barriers to platform users posting content. We cannot rely on user-provided tagging to be accurate enough for a targeted approach, so a broader review was necessary to be thorough. The post reads, it continues, if we lose our ability to accept payments from a partner like PayPal or Stripe, we impact the ability of all creatives to do business. Losing PayPal, for instance, would prevent us from sending payouts to many people. The company says it is still waiting for final determinations from its payment processors. Itch.io can definitely have more transparency here, says Corcoran, and we're sorry for the stress we caused to any developers who were put up in the.
Yeah. Sadly enough, DT, there probably are people who would want this type of shit. Actually, we know definitively that there are people who want to ban this stuff for adults too. That's why they always break out the Gooner and Coomer euphemisms, because they don't think even adults should have access to certain shit. But I am consistent in my thing of, does it violate the harm principle? No? Then get fucked. If yes, unmarked grave underneath the jail.
Jonah, counter-argument, think about the adults.
Oh, I thought that was ZT that said that. Oh no, it was Jonah. But yeah, there are also people who want to ban shit like this for adults too, and they are even more contemptible in my opinion than the people who go think about the children, because at least the think about the children people are at least loosely still connected to the reason we should protect children is because they can't consent to certain things. But as I just went through, think of the children is not a persuasive argument unless and until the harm principle is violated. After the harm principle is violated, then yes, please face the wall and then wind up in the unmarked mass grave underneath the jail. But as long as the harm principle isn't violated, I don't care either way. So should we end it there? Do you want to save the nobody review and stuff for next week, or?
Now we can get to that stuff. I'm just the Gamer Gate article. I just thought we could move.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, I don't know if you want to do the boys article or not.
We probably should skip as well, because you are having a hard time staying even awake. So let's just do the nobody review and then call it, if you still want to do that one.
So yeah, Nobody 2 came out August 15th. I saw it last Tuesday. I guess general thoughts. It was really good, actually.
Yeah, it's a lot like the first one. If you liked the first one, you will probably like this one too. And it very much fits in that sort of pseudo John Wick category that production company seems to specialize in. And unsurprisingly, like most of the other pseudo John Wick movies, I also enjoy this one, which it it should say something it should say something very positive indeed about the fact that I don't usually like shoot 'em ups very much, but pretty much all of the like pseudo John Wick production company ones I end up liking. I think my favorite, other than the John Wick franchise itself, is probably still Violent Night, and I really want there to be a sequel where he fights Krampus at some point. But
Um,
yeah, this Bullet Train, the first one, obviously, all of the kind of pseudo John Wick movies are good, and it's somewhat impressive that they can almost consistently make me okay with shoot 'em up type action movie that I don't normally care for all that much.
right. Yeah, music was good. It all handled pretty quick. It was. What surprised me though is the runtime because it's only an hour and a half long.
Yeah, it's very quick. They do
Still
not dull at all.
no, but it's still good. It actually does take its time though.
Yeah, they didn't. What I mean is there are some movies that feel the need to stick an extra 20 to 30 minutes on for no reason other than runtime. But this one is very like succinct. It's here to give you exactly what you want from it and nothing more.
Yeah. Um.
Like I say, if you liked the first one and you like the John Wick or pseudo John Wick that production company specializes in, you will probably like this one too.
I will
Kind of
say.
wish that kind of wish there could be a crossover, but maybe that's a little bit too much to hope for.
Uh. I do say it. It almost feels like National Lampoon's Summer Vacation. Or
Yeah.
no?
If it were if it were it's like National Lampoon's Vacation and Taken had a baby almost.
Maybe not Taken, but uh, it's just generally fun. And funny enough, I think it also it's not parodiizing or satirizing, but it has the element of like kind of a family. It involves his family a little bit more.
Yeah, the humor element from all like the humor and the absurdity of this is really good.
Right.
It reminds me of that one episode of Powerpuff Girls where the middle-aged factory worker decides to become a supervillain and then his family joins him because the family that stays together stays together.
Um. Yeah, it's just generally good. It's also got a good heart. I mean, to be fair, oddly enough, these movies actually do have a lot of heart in them for being action movies.
They do, and I think that might be one of the things that makes these sorts of movies so much better, in my opinion, than like Jason Bourne. Because in the case of like the Jason Bourne movies and the Daniel Craig Bond movies, all the fun and heart is just sucked out of them, like sucked dry completely.
Yeah.
But with these, not only is there usually some pretty interesting world building, which there is, but also there's a lot of heart and like human element to it, which is nice.
Yeah. Um, I guess that's pretty much it. Actually, I don't really think there's much we can talk about.
I don't really have much else to contribute. But yeah, this is another like I say,
I will
if
say,
you like go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. No, please finish your thing, and then I'll say.
I, I will say that if you like what this production company usually does, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't like this one. And if you are a fan of like the National Lampoon series and you kind of want to see the action movie equivalent of that, this movie I think has you covered.
Yeah.
Makes
Uh,
makes makes me actually wish that like in the same vein of like doing the um National Lampoon Vacation movies, but with a action movie spin. Imagine a crossover between this guy's family and Violent Night's version of Santa at Christmas time, doing like a action movie equivalent of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
what was I gonna say? This movie's gonna kind of stick with me a little more because I went to a different movie theater to watch it.
Mm,
Um, actually, more of a legit movie theater because there was a lot more business there, and it's been there a lot longer.
mm.
So the reason why I went to a different movie theater was uh, the one I usually went to temporarily closed.
Aw.
Yeah, it's fine though. But went to that one.
Yeah, if this theater is so much better than the other one, then you might want to switch which theater you go
We're
to.
definitely considering that. Actually, it's not okay because it's not even like it looks like like those theaters you see in movies all the time.
Yeah, I have one of those relatively nearby my house.
Not like the old-fashioned movie theaters, mind you, but more like I can't think of a movie that has like a kind of or maybe like that what was it, Phantom of the Movie Theater, if anyone remembers that Disney movie.
Oh yeah, Phantom of the Megaplex.
Thank you. Been a while
Yeah,
since I've watched it, so my memory's not as.
right. Yeah.
But yeah,
God damn it, Disney Channel used to put so much effort into their movies.
but yeah, this place was pretty cool. Had recliner seats.
Mm.
It was nicer. I don't know, like
Yeah, you guys might want to switch to that theater if you enjoy it so much more.
I mean, it's a bit more of a drive, but I kind of feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, if it's if it's a better experience, then if I were you, I would just split your movie going between that theater and the drive-in theater.
No, that's well,
Mm.
we'll be in talks about that. But yeah, no, like I said, it's a good movie. I think it's a definite recommend. Obviously,
Yeah,
anyway,
like I said, it's basically doing the same thing the first one did with a little bit of a vacation spin, but that's also kind of what they advertise the movie as. So if you liked the first one and you like the idea of doing like National Lampoon's action movie Vacation, then you'll probably like this. And we should probably start outroing here so the brainstorm doesn't fall flat on his face.
so with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off, all of you.